Welcome to this Google Hangout brought to you by .uk. I'm Charles Arthur, I'm a technology journalist. I've been a technology journalist since you had to get on the internet by dialing up through your phone line, which was quite good if you didn't want to get any phone calls. With me today to talk about building your online business, I have Dan Martin from The Pitch, Patrick Drake from HelloFresh, and Ayoub Khote from Scredible. Okay, building a successful brand though isn't just about creating a great logo or an advertising campaign. A well-crafted online strategy is also about putting your business on the map. But for many small businesses, the budget and limited resources can cause frustrating barriers. So in this Hangout, we'll be asking the group of people how to get the insights and what the tips are, the essential ways of successfully building your online brand. Patrick, let's just come to you with HelloFresh. Where did you start? Did you start with the name? Did you start with just the idea and then have lots of them?
So in terms of the concept, we had seen that a similar concept was working in Scandinavian countries, although it was targeting more family unit rather than like couples, for instance. So we thought that it had legs, it had real potential, and so that was the starting point really for deciding a name. And HelloFresh, you know, we didn't go through a whole load of names before we arrived on it, and in fact it fits perfectly because it's not too specific either, and it means that if we want to increase the range of products that we have in the future, we're not just limited to one type of food or even food itself. You know, perhaps we'll expand into something else down the line, and the name allows us to do that. It doesn't limit us, and I think that's very important.
When you're talking to small businesses and you're trying to advise them about what sort of steps they should be, I mean, I sort of assume that usually they've registered a domain, but how important is it, or how often do you come across the situation where they've sort of got a generic that's sort of something or other business.wordpress.com, and in fact, you know, they're sitting on someone else's platform, and what do you then tell them?
Well, I usually tell them to decide on a name. Sometimes you can have good names and bad names. You can have a long, complicated name, or you can have what I like to call a shoutable URL, something that you can just shout across the room and you know the person at the other end of the room will get it. So what I try to go for is always keep it short, keep it sweet, have as few syllables after the domain name as possible. The advantage with .uk now, and what I advise clients now, is that with .uk, it's as shoutable as .com. It's as easy to remember as .com, and it doesn't detract from the actual domain name.
With .uk as the sponsor, there's a hell of a lot of advice that we give them about registering an internet presence, and we're very much a British competition. We're all about supporting UK startups, and that's what we want to communicate. So when we started, we've been through all sorts of URL journeys. So when we started, we were like thepitch2009.com, thepitch2010.com, and the problem with that is you forget to renew them all. And we did actually have somebody that bought one of our next year, and we had to have a conversation. So then we switched to thepitchuk.com, but it was quite clunky. So now we're thepitch.uk because it instantly communicates what we are, what we do, and you know, like you said, it's easy to say.
Once you've got the website name and you've registered the domains, now you need to build a following. And this is the next step, obviously, for an online business, is you're online, now you need the business. So how do you build the brand evangelist? How do you get the advocates? How do you get the people who are going to give you the free word of mouth?
You can use social media. Social media is very powerful. Social media is also very hard to break into to get big very quickly. It happens to a few people. Those few people make the headlines, but it is very difficult. If you're in the tech business, then you can go to Twitter and Google+, for example. Lots of tech stuff go on there. If you're in arts and crafts, for example, go to Pinterest. Great community for arts and crafts there. So it does really depend on what area you're in.
How important is passion in getting the brand across, in really getting people engaged with the brand? And is there a danger once you've been going at it for a couple of years that some of the fire goes out? How do you keep the passion as a driver for success?
I think passion is absolutely crucial to a startup business, to any business. Passion gives you the stamina that you will need when you go through tough times. But passion by itself is not very useful unless you can contain it within a sense of mission and actually bring some structure to that passion and give it a direction. It's realizing that even when you do grow bigger and you're 2 years down the line, there might be 30 people in your company, but in a sense they're all co-founders of your company. At that point where you've gone from 3 to 30, there's every single person is still equally important to maintaining the passion and the mission and the culture that you have, so that when hopefully you expand into a really large company, 30 people will be able to lead 100 or 200 people and still maintain that sense of passion. That's what it's about to me.
Dan, obviously, given that you're saying lots of nascent companies, they must have fairly obvious weaknesses. Do you find it easy to identify the strengths that they have?
Yeah, the weaknesses are, they're very easy to see, particularly if they're on stage pitching in front of 400 people. You can pretty much see the weaknesses. But yeah, the strengths are harder, and it often comes down to when you actually talk to them. So the talking to people is like really, really important. But there's so many opportunities now to get out there and go to networking events and watch Google Hangouts. So I think if you can get your people skills sorted at the start, that's gonna help your business as you grow. But on the weakness thing as well is also accept that you're not going to be good at everything. And particularly as you grow, an entrepreneur at the start wants to control everything and be in charge of everything. But if you've got this, you've got to accept that you can't do it all and bring in the people that fill the gaps for the stuff that you aren't so good at.
The strengths and weaknesses that I suppose we wanted to focus in on at the beginning were not necessarily ones that were so much on the business level as they were on a personal level. Is this team of people the right team to be able to take this concept forwards? And you said it exactly. It's about filling in those gaps. It's about not letting your pride get in the way of better judgment. It's about not being insecure about your own position within the company, even as the founder. The fact is that when you're employing people, for instance, you should employ people who are better than you, not worse than you, because you think, oh my God, I might be usurped as the founder.
How can brands preserve their trust and the sort of value online?
First of all, pause before you tweet. I think I've done it myself. You get an angry person and your instinct is to protect yourself. As a user on Facebook, personally, if that happens, but a brand, you just want to sort of be really angry and say, no, you're wrong. The first thing is pause, take a deep breath, look at who they are. And, often you'll find that they're a very small voice in the big pond that's just out there. Potentially they work for a competitor, or they're just out to cause trouble if you look back at their tweets. But ultimately, the key thing is to actually reply and to be open about it and not ignore it. And so if you're, say, in the sort of hospitality space and you are getting persistent TripAdvisor negative reviews, then yeah, you do need to look at what's going wrong. And if there's a common thread, they're referring to a specific employee or a specific service, then put it right pretty quickly, because the internet can amplify negativity very quickly. But I think key to it all is to just be open, transparent, and respond.
So to finish, I'd just like to ask each of you for your top piece, your single piece of advice for building an online brand. Dan?
To go where your audience are. So particularly when it comes to social media, don't register for them all and post on them all daily and assume you're going to make sales. Spend some time researching where your audience are, and all that takes is talking to the customers that you do have and asking them where they hang out, and hang out in those spaces. And while you're in those spaces, drive traffic back to your own website where you can contain them and turn them into paying customers.
Terrific. Patrick?
I suppose it would be to realise what the internet is. The internet is not a billboard where it's just you put something up there and you stand back and you hope that's just going to generate sales. The point of the internet and the point of social media now is it creates a conversation. And so everything that you put onto, for instance, your social media should be something that invites conversation, that invites interaction with the customer, so that you can actually, you can create that enthusiasm and just have a conversation with them rather than be preaching to them from a pulpit.
Ayoub.
Just be yourself. Don't work too hard on a voice that doesn't fit what you are, what you do, and who you are. If you try to do that, then you will come across as false. So be yourself.
That brings us to the end of this Google Hangout, and I'd like to thank Dan Martin from The Pitch, Patrick Drake from HelloFresh, and Ayoub Khote for Scredible. I'm Charles Arthur. Thank you for joining us.